In February of 1949, police raided a warehouse in Leopold Road in West Sussex, England, owned by John George Haigh. Inside, they found several 40-gallon drums and containers of concentrated sulphuric acid. Outside, they found 28 pounds of melted human body fat, part of a human foot, human gallstones, and part of a denture. It was clear to investigators from the acid inside what had happened. Haigh had murdered someone and dissolved their body in acid to hide his crime. However, what would become more shocking over the course of the investigation was that he had done it before and had planned to do it again, had it not been for one small misstep. John Haigh had not started out a killer. Born on the 24th of July 1909 at Stamford in Lincolnshire, England, his family was an affluent, ultra-religious conservative family living in Yorkshire. Haigh grew up attending classical music concerts and was awarded several scholarships throughout his academic life. However, by the age of 25, he was arrested and jailed for document forgery. Upon his imprisonment, his conservative family decided they wanted nothing to do with him. After serving just 2 years, John Haigh was released from prison and moved to London, where he became a chauffeur. However, despite serving time for fraud, he continued to swindle unsuspecting do-gooders out of their money. He would pretend to be a lawyer named William Adamson and would frequently sell fraudulent stock shares from estates of his dead clients at below market rates. Eventually, he was caught when one of his clients realized he misspelled his false name on a legal document, and so in 1939 he was arrested and imprisoned again, this time sentenced to 4 years for fraud. While in prison, Haigh realized that his biggest downfall was that he had left his fraud victims alive to report the crimes. Haigh spent the rest of his time in prison devising ways to dispose of any witnesses to the crimes that he fully intended to continue committing upon his release. He began researching the French murderer Georges Alexander Sarret, whose signature had been dissolving his victims in sulphuric acid. Using his free time, he devised his own method of dissolving bodies in various forms of acid by practicing on mice. Eventually, he found that it took 30 minutes for a small field mouse to dissolve, and was able to calculate how much acid and time he would need for a full-grown man. 4 years later, free from prison and armed with his newfound acid-dissolving knowledge, John Haigh took a job at an engineering firm in the accounting department. Soon after, he ran into an old friend named William McSwan, whom he had worked as a chauffeur for. McSwan told him about his new venture as a landlord, collecting rent from the tenants who stayed in his parents' multiple properties. Though he had a well-paying job at the engineering firm, Haigh became jealous of McSwan's seemingly lavish lifestyle and the little effort he seemed to put into it. A few months after bumping into him, Haigh lured McSwan into an abandoned basement and hit him over the head. Using his newfound disposal method, Haigh put McSwan's body into a 40-gallon drum and filled it with concentrated sulphuric acid. And 2 days later, McSwan was nothing more than 100 or so pounds of sludge, which Haigh then poured down a manhole. Riding the high of his successful murder, Haigh took over McSwan's landlord duties, telling McSwan's family that he had run away to avoid being drafted into World War II. McSwan's parents eventually, though, became suspicious when their son had not returned home after the draft was over. So John George Haigh lured them into his workshop and dissolved them in acid as well. Left with their money and their properties, Haigh moved into the Onslow Court Hotel in Kensington. However, the roughly £10,000 he had stolen did not last long, as he had developed a gambling problem. So running through his cash quicker than he expected, Haigh was forced to find another wealthy couple to kill and rob. After feigning interest in a house that was for sale, Haigh murdered the owners, Dr. Archibald Henderson and his wife Rose. Both Hendersons were disposed of at the warehouse in Gloucestershire, where the McSwan family had also been killed. The warehouse seemed to be the perfect place, as it was relatively remote and contained a manhole where the human sludge could easily be disposed of. After the 5 murders, John Haigh decided to rent a larger warehouse on Leopold Road in London, closer to where he lived, with more space for his drums and acid concoctions. Here, he would kill and dissolve his final victim. Olive Deacon was a wealthy widow who lived at the Onslow Court Hotel with Haigh. Olive thought herself something of an inventor, and upon finding out that Haigh worked at an engineering firm, asked if she could talk to him about an idea she had for artificial fingernails. Haigh took the opportunity to lure her to his warehouse and murder her there. He shot her in the back of the neck and then submerged her body in acid. Olive Deacon was the body that investigators discovered outside the Leopold Road warehouse. Unlike Haigh's previous disposal grounds, the Leopold Road warehouse had no floor drain and no manhole access. Unable to pour the sludge quietly into the sewers, Haigh had been forced to dump it in a pile of rubble behind the warehouse, where it was easily uncovered by investigators. Upon the discovery of Olive Deacon's body, Haigh was arrested and charged with murder. Word spread of his unique and horrifying crimes around the media, who nicknamed him as the Acid Bath Murderer. At trial, he pleaded insanity and claimed that drinking the blood of his victims had driven him mad, though there was no evidence that he had in fact consumed human blood. After hearing of his insanity defense, one of the arresting officers had mentioned to the prosecutors that Haigh had asked him what the chances were of being released from a psychiatric hospital versus a prison. After the jury was informed of this, it only took minutes to return a guilty verdict on Haigh, sentencing him to death. On August 10, 1949, John George Haigh was executed by hanging for his crimes. Just before he was hanged, Haigh was asked if he would like a drink of brandy, to which he replied, "Make it a large one, old boy." John Haigh made friends wherever he went. The police liked him. The chaplain who knelt to pray with him in his cell minutes before his execution spoke affectionately about him. His parents still loved him and firmly believed that God would forgive him. Psychologists now believe that John Haigh had a paranoid constitution, the same disease as Hitler. They believed he most likely developed a paranoid personality to escape his parents' suffocating universe in order to relieve himself from emotional pain. Today, John Haigh remains in the public eye in a special exhibition at the Museum of London, where a collection of his grisly relics are open to public view from New Scotland Yard's infamous Black Museum. The gloves and apron Haigh used to protect himself from the acid are on show, together with Mrs. Deacon's gallstones and dentures, as well as the revolver he used to kill his victims. I hope you enjoyed this short documentary on John Haigh, and if you would like more videos like this in the future, then please thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.